When Steve Jobs unveiled the original Macintosh in 1984, the room stood up and roared. It was a pure physical expression of visionary conviction. For the first 3 weeks, the data perfectly matched that conviction. Those initial sales were driven by early adopters, people who already understood the vision and needed only the confirmation that the product finally existed. This resulted in an aggressive upward spike. But by week 4, the trajectory changed. The steep climb hit a ceiling and began to trail off horizontally. The wave of early enthusiasm was already flattening. Reaching the mainstream market required meeting a different set of standards. To these customers, a product had to solve a problem they already knew they had, and it had to do so without demanding more behavioral change than they were willing to give. At launch, the Macintosh struggled to clear these bars. The price was high, the software ecosystem was thin, and the memory was insufficient for the daily professional tasks that make the machine indispensable. In an auditorium, the machine felt like the future. But in a quiet store aisle, a customer looks at the tag and makes a different calculation. The calculation of someone spending real money, rather than someone being moved by a performance. As the emotional echo of the launch event faded, the Macintosh had to survive on its specifications alone. And when a product can no longer rely on momentum, the raw math of the marketplace takes over. John Sculley analyzed the weekly reports alone before the day began. He had developed this discipline at PepsiCo after realizing that by the time data reached an executive, it was usually buried under layers of interpretation. He wanted to see what the numbers actually said before anyone else could filter them. He was looking for signs of a common organizational failure, the way bad news tends to be softened or delayed as it moves upward. In many systems, information is translated into language that makes it more palatable to the person at the top. This filtering is often a rational, self-protective response. Intelligent people learn through experience that if a leader reacts poorly to unwelcome information, it is safer to lead with a version of the truth that protects the leader's ego. Recognizing this, Sculley began keeping a private second set of analyses. He tracked the aggressive sales projections Jobs had insisted upon against the numbers that were actually materializing in the stores. Every week, he watched the widening gap between the vision of the math and the math itself. He was building a picture of a structural crisis. While the rest of the leadership was choosing which version of the truth to present, the actual trajectory was becoming impossible to ignore. The weekly executive meetings were dominated by Steve Jobs' engagement. His attention alone determined whether a topic mattered to the company. When he leaned forward, the room followed. When the reports showed a shortfall, Jobs reacted as if the data were an anomaly that didn't correspond to reality. He held firmly to his mental model of the product, essentially deciding that the model was correct and the information was wrong. His solution was to double down. "We need to be bolder," he told the room. "The market doesn't know what it wants yet. We show them." In that room, 2 leaders were solving different problems. Jobs was solving the problem of conviction, how to hold the line against a market that hadn't arrived yet. Sculley was solving the problem of trajectory. What happens when the gap between vision and revenue becomes a permanent condition? They were looking at the same numbers in the same boardroom, but they no longer inhabited the same version of reality. Eventually, the numbers reached the board. Governance bodies are not audiences. They do not respond to performance the way a room full of journalists or early adopters might. They are managed through the careful construction of a narrative that makes them feel both informed and reassured. Jobs responded to their questions with vision and conviction. He argued that the Macintosh was too important to be evaluated against the timeline of a quarterly report. Sculley, meanwhile, maintained the board through bilateral relationships and objective data. He didn't offer vision, he offered the reality of the situation, delivered without drama or exaggeration. The board respected Jobs' conviction. It was the force that had built Apple, but they were beginning to feel the distance between respect and reassurance. Sculley didn't move toward a confrontation. He simply continued reading the reports accurately and saying what they said. He allowed the weight of the numbers to do the work for him. The flow of information is the ultimate indicator of an organization's health. When a leader becomes immune to unwelcome data, the math doesn't disappear. It simply waits for the moment when reality forces a correction.